But moving on here, rallies come out from both sides.
Oh!
It's a big shatter.
That's gonna be a huge move. What are you?
Able to
I don't understand the bomb is. What is going on?
How do we even begin this one? When you boil it down, Plat had one of the simplest seasons out of the entire league. They sucked until they didn't. But I guess in the spirit of the series and in favor of creating something that's at least somewhat entertaining, here goes something.
Plat was in an interesting situation at the start of Season 1. The vast majority of their Season 0 roster became ineligible to play in the team once Novice and Advanced divisions were established. Not to mention, their former manager and head coach were both forced to leave in favor of becoming staff members. All in all, the team was losing Bun, Basilisk, McMack, Grandy, and Nori, Hedwig, Pings, Acronator, and Boulders, leaving only EQO, Tannic, and Paradox behind. Surprisingly enough, it was EQO who would step up under the mantle of leadership, with Tannic retaining his team captain position once again. Plat still had a core from which they could build upon. They just needed to pick the right pieces when it came time for the draft. The original philosophy of Plat during Season 0 was to pick up players not based on their raw skill, but rather those who could be reasonable and would constantly work to improve, and at first glance this new generation of chatters were continuing on with that tradition. None of PC's pickups were extraordinarily skilled, but they were good enough to create a stable roster given enough time.
Early on after the draft, comms began arising that would hint at the worst which was yet to come. EQO suddenly became inactive and was unable to show up to scrims, leaving Tannic and Designs to step up and lead the team for the time being. Plat would scrim some leading up to the first week of games, but they weren't getting very much out of it besides losing. Their communication was non-existent and nobody was stepping up to fill the in-game leader position. This led them to playing disjointed, effectively playing quick play. Week 1 rolled around and they were up against drastically underrated Papega friends. It was hard to tell at the time if Papega was just incredibly good for beating Plat 3-0 or if Plat really just fell flat in their faces, but the time would soon reveal that it was a little bit of both.
They would continue to get rolled over for the next few weeks, particularly the loss to the Bop Burgers in Week 3 being a tipping point for some players. The roster shifted around a bit, with two noticeable pickups being Pew Pew on main support and Jeff on main tank. These players weren't drastically better than the ones they replaced, but they were noticeably more active and would even remain with the team for the entire season. Around weeks 3 to 4, a few more roster moves were made. Pichu was traded to double cap for Kizgo, and the former double cap captain, Bob Ross, joined the team as well. This would begin a long chain of trades between these two teams throughout the remainder of the season. Yet again, Plat was fielding a brand new roster with practically no synergy going into week 4. The odds weren't in their favor, but as it would so happen, if you bash your head against a brick wall enough times, you might just form a crack. The match started off well enough for Double Cap, having succeeded using their signature quad main tank strat, but all good things must come to an end, and the ceiling was about to come crashing down on their heads. And what has got to be the luckiest event of their entire regular season, Oasis disconnected mid-map during map 2 when facing Double Cap. This gave Plat the opportunity to come back and tie up the series 1-1. Thanks to the following 5v6 matchup, Oasis would remain disconnected for the rest of the game, meaning DC was forced to field multiple subs and players on off rolls. Somehow, someway, Plat managed to keep it together enough to pull out their first and only win of the regular season, all thanks to Oasis.
With a whole singular win under their belts, Plat were ready to get their names on the board for once. Surprisingly enough, they didn't make any major roster moves during the mid-season break. Instead, they sought out coaching from various members of the community who were offering one-time sessions. This reportedly included the likes of Reality, Plasma, Cybersnip, Hedwig, and Bun, though none of the team looks back at these sessions as anything helping too much. Their problems were easy to identify. They lacked the fundamentals of what could even be considered a team. Now, with what appeared to be a solidified roster, it was up to them to grind out the synergy necessary to stand a chance against the other 5 teams in Novice that have been doing so since week 1.
And with Plat earning only a single match win throughout the first 5 weeks of the season, they decided to top themselves and win only a single map in the second half. They only took one map at the course of weeks 6 through 10. Yeah, by this point, even teams that were practically falling apart on a daily basis, like Double Clap and One Trick Wonders, were still capable of giving the likes of Plat a thrashing. Things were getting desperate by this point. EQO was still mostly inactive, Designs in particular was pouring his heart and soul into keeping the team afloat, and they had literally nothing to show for it. Week 7 would be the final major shakeup in Plat Platchat's roster. Designs, Bob Ross, and Kizgo are traded to Double Clap in exchange for Oace. The team would also pick up Elpian on Flex Support, Madam and Mentos on Off Tank, Stanley on Flex DPS, and DC's former manager Zach. Some of these players such as Oace and Madam were incredibly talented, but the level of skill of Platchat's players was never in question, just their ability to come together as a team. Plus, with Dez now gone, someone else would have to step up big time to be the effective manager. Sure enough, Stanley and Oace filled that role right away. They, along with Tanik, orchestrated the team's scrim schedule, acquired new coaching staff in the weeks leading up to the playoffs, and finally solidified a starting lineup. Though that may have also been because the signing window was closed by this point, but we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt just this once.
Now this is where things get interesting because Platchat during the regular season and Platchat during the playoffs are two entirely different creatures. For the regular season, the team gave up around week 3, resigned to the fact that they wouldn't be able to win anything in the current state, but leading up to the playoffs, the team went into overdrive, putting themselves through one of the most rigorous training the league has ever seen. With the help of their newer coaching, Cybersnip, Neglecta, and Bakanje, the team began practicing via multiple 4-hour scrim blocks multiple times a week. If they couldn't build up synergy over the course of 10 weeks, why couldn't they just make up for it in 2? And somehow, that absolutely preposterous logic actually worked. They were winning the vast majority of the scrims and started listening to calls. If only they could have made this breakthrough a month prior. Regardless, the time came for the quarterfinals match, and everything was set for the most insane playoff run in League Zero's history. In order to claim their title, Platchat would have to burst their way past the 3rd place seed in Rio, the 2nd place seed in Bot Burgers, and finally, the 1st place seed in Papega Parrots. In that order. The Rio Redemption, in particular, was an incredibly tough opponent that very nearly missed their chance to skip out in the quarters altogether. Instead, they were stuck, quote-unquote, facing lousy Platchat, end quote, and it was that overconfidence that would provide Platchat the opening they desperately needed. It was a long shot, but Platchat pulled out some stellar goats play as well as a few DPS compositions on specific points. They gave up a single map, but ultimately closed out the series 3-1. In that world, Season 1 Platchat defeated Rio and advanced to the semis. We're still not sure, but we're living in it. Platchat certainly did not become the best team overnight. While they had improved greatly compared to their former selves, it was their opponent's inability to take them seriously that provided their downfalls. Bot Burgers felt just the same as Rio, with the same scoreline and everything. They put up a valiant effort, but it was not meant to be this time around. Platchat was on a tear, and if they had everything to say about it, they were going to ride this wave straight to the grand finals. However, the following week would host what would become their greatest and most hyped match in the team's history.
Papega were not like Rio or the Busters, and that they immediately realized that PC was on a hot streak. They refused to make the simple mistake of underestimating their opponent, even opting to take the less risky route to the finals by facing DC, despite the regular season standings. The Parrots' composure is what set them apart from the rest in-game, and it would take the hottest of hot streaks to tear them down with momentum alone. Platchat couldn't luck their way out of this match. They really needed to outplay their opponents, straight to the very core. And within the early maps of the finals, Papega proved that exactly. They took a demanding 2-0 lead thanks to their superior team play and some incredible Sombra goats. Platchat was struggling, but they had to keep their cool. They began to slow down the pace of the game to better react, slowly but surely nullifying Magical's effectiveness on Sombra. The Parrots would eventually scrap that strategy altogether once it stopped working, opting instead for more traditional goats. The series went back and forth constantly. Papega would take a slight lead, only for Platchat to tie it back up. This kept going on until they reached Hollywood, map 7. There was still a potential for a draw, but neither team wanted to delay their victory any longer. If they had any say in the matter, their nearly 2-hour-long series was ending right here. Papega pushed the cart first, managing to get all the way through second point, only to fall a few meters short from full capture. Platchat now had their win condition, painted with a light as a box on the ground. Escort the payload there, and they would fulfill the greatest playoff run ever. Fall short, so too were their dreams of championship. PC's attack came down to the wire. With only a few meters left to push, both sides were in stall mode. In the final hour, Papega Parrots had the man and ult advantage, holding the card in place. But due to lack of communication, they drew all their ults, with little to no value gained. Platchat started flooding back from spawn, shifting the momentum. Tofu went for a cheeky shatter, but was blocked by a miracle play by Oace. GR. Whether this was intentional or not, the shatter was blocked by little more than a brig shield. Papega had no more ults to invest, and Platchat took advantage. They gradually overwhelmed the defenders and claimed the ultimate victory. Season 1 champions.
You know,
I have severely conflicted feelings about this team, and not just because I was on the original roster back in the day. I'm so impossibly proud of them for what they managed to accomplish in the end of it all, but I'm also left wondering why they weren't able to show this kind of prowess earlier on. The skill was obviously there the whole time, but the effort was only put in during the last few moments of the season. If I had to give them a grade, it'd be a D. Now, let me explain, because I know that giving the champs a barely passing grade sounds kind of funny. I base these ratings off the entire season, and to be honest, I don't think the last 2 weeks of playoffs really negates the 10 weeks of regular season that came before it. I respect the hell out of those that put their effort into managing the team while EQO was AFK, particularly Tanic, Design, Stanley, and Oace, but so many mistakes were made that just led to Platchat becoming a laughingstock right up until they weren't. If you want a crash course on how to not run a team, just take a look at Platchat and do almost everything the exact opposite. They couldn't keep a consistent roster on a week-by-week basis. There were large periods of time where no one stepped up to take the in-game leader position, and they went for basically the entire season without addressing their issue of their manager and coaches being utterly AFK. They ended the regular season with a larger negative map differential than Crest had in a positive one. It's kinda impressive in a sad way, but please don't let my criticism take away from the fact that this is not only a team of champions, but Platchat is now the most successful brand in the league's history, having finished 3rd and 1st for seasons 0 and 1 respectively. Though perhaps next season try to spread out the effort more evenly over the course of the some odd weeks it takes place. Who knows? It might be fun not having a Waste be largely responsible for every single one of your wins, but I guess there's only one way to find out.